Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to The Way Through. I'm your host, Bonnie Worth, and every week, I know I say it over and over and over again, but I'm incredibly grateful for the chance and opportunity to connect with you, to have these amazing conversations. So thank you for tuning in each week and being a part of what is making was a purpose for the show, for the content. And I just want to say thank you because I truly, truly love that I have a chance to connect with you and perhaps help you in some small way on your healing journey. Today, we are talking about thinking emotion and how we can't really move forward on our healing journey if we are intellectualizing what we are feeling. And now this is something that, my goodness, I know really well. I really had a tendency to overthink my emotion. I was really cut off from the ability to be able to feel things because feeling really felt was too painful, it was too hard, and so I would think about my emotion. But here's the key is we cannot move forward. We cannot release. We cannot overcome if we are consistently thinking about our emotions and not giving ourselves permission to dive in to the feeling of them. So our mind's tendency, again, in overthinking, then we begin judging our emotion, whether it's a right emotion, a wrong emotion, we shouldn't feel this way. We're maybe being too sensitive, whatever the rationale may be from the mind's perspective. And so what happens is we tend to then suppress them. Now, I've talked a lot about this on the show about how we suppress the emotion in our body. And of course, that's an energetic suppression as well as the emotional piece of it. So, of course, it creates this cycle that is fueled by that deep seated conditioning, those inherited belief systems that we're carrying. There is, and especially in our society, I think, when we look at conditioning, there has been a portrayal or a belief system that's been established that when we feel emotion, when we are emotional, that vulnerability is a sign of weakness. And so it is one of the very things that can stop us from being able to really have a genuine emotional even sense of well-being in our life, where we can look at the emotional intelligence, our capacity to move forward and to allow for the emotions, here again, not as a sign of weakness, but a necessary part of expressing what is not just our feeling, but our true self as well. So all of this is rooted in conditioning, that human condition. And so for many people, especially like right from childhood, we've been conditioned to believe that showing emotions is maybe even, as I said, it's a weakness. There maybe is even incompetence in our ability to function. It's like the stay strong, don't cry, be tough, suck it up. Our society really values in some way the stoicism, the idea that when we wear our heart on our sleeve, or that we cry about anything, that it's a flaw, that it's seen as a flaw rather than a strength. And I remember when I was still working in what I always call my old job, or my previous career. And I remember sitting and being really overwhelmed with some of the stresses and that came with the responsibilities that I was navigating. And there were times when I would go into my supervisor's office, and as I was trying to talk about the challenges that I was trying to navigate, looking at solutions, how did I handle some of the things that were coming up, I remember becoming so emotional, where to the point that I couldn't talk to him without crying. And I always left his office feeling as if I was unprofessional. It wasn't that he was making me feel unprofessional, because he kept saying, "Oh my gosh, don't apologize, Bonnie. I understand. Like, it's a lot to handle." He was so great. But because of the conditioning, I was judging myself as being unprofessional because I couldn't get through a conversation where, in being able to move in solution oriented conversation, that without crying. And so that was adaptive. That was something that was a part of this suppression, that was the barrier for me in allowing for genuine expression of my true self, of this part of me that is sensitive and soft and cries and gets weepy. And I cry over loving and positive things, and I cry over sad things. It's just a part of my character and part of my personality. But I had been so conditioned out of the feeling, and conditioned to, as I said, to think about it, to overanalyze and judge myself and judge the emotional content of things from an intellectual state. I tried to rationalize my feelings and often rationalize myself out of feeling the things that were so deep, and important for me. So it's part of that human condition that's rooted in that innate drive that, we need to avoid the pain. We need to not allow ourselves to get into the discomfort of things. It's a survival instinct, and it's a survival instinct that was honestly essential for when we consider our ancestors and their safety. But it really has, shaped how we respond to emotional experiences even to this day. So as a result, many people have developed patterns of repression, of analyzing these situations in order to manage difficult emotions. And it's a coping mechanism. And often it's happening unconsciously, and it's being reinforced through our familial conditioning, through societal conditioning, where we valorize strength and self-control and that emotional stoicism. So it's one of the ways through the survival that we avoid pain and seek comfort instead. So when, from that very young age, we're learning that certain emotions, fear and sadness and anger and even vulnerability is undesirable or even unacceptable. So it really causes us, where we want to get out of the discomfort. So we suppress the feelings, we push them away, they get pushed into the subconscious, and we distract ourselves. We distract ourselves with busyness, we distract ourselves with even this positive, excuse me, this positive mindset that I just need to, that even can be as simple as I just need to be positive. We try to think ourselves into feeling better. Now, thinking ourselves to feeling better is, can serve us along the path. But what happens is we end up misunderstanding our feelings, and we can avoid it. We end up avoiding the depth of the impact that maybe our experiences, our wounding, a situation has had on us. So over time, that avoidance manifests into that emotional repression. We lock our feelings away, we hold on to them, and so we end up, feeling maybe really numb when things are happening. But more importantly, we end up disconnecting ourselves from our true self. That's exactly what happened for me. I was completely disconnected from my true self. I tried to push away the very fact that I'm a very emotional person. I never allowed myself to do emotion. I separated myself out of emotion, and as I said, just intellectualized it. So it was one of the ways that I tried to control my feelings. I tried to control what, my environment, control my situations, and control my feelings. And so this is where, again, I believed that in some aspect it was what would make them go away, and that it was going to give me mastery over that internal landscape. So, it became this judgment, and why am I feeling this way? And looking at, did I do something wrong? And really this mental loop that created this cycle of this obsessive thinking, which became, even greater self-criticism, even more frustration. And obviously even more suppression, because I wasn't achieving the outcome that I was looking for. I was distant from my feelings, and there was this ongoing sense of internal chaos. So suppression numbs us. It numbs our authentic experiences, and it keeps us in this stagnation. And then we have these outbursts that are triggered when we have unresolved issues, unresolved feelings inside of us. And so it keeps us trapped in that mental maze where our feelings, we dissect them, we judge them, and of course, we end up misunderstanding maybe what happened, or misunderstanding our own self. And it really erodes our well-being, both mentally, emotionally, physically. Even we can say it does have a physical, because that emotional state can lead to exhaustion. It can lead to other illnesses, and whether headaches and nausea and all those things, when we're not willing to move into the emotional body and really, really, foster what is our well-being. It's the judgment, and both of ourselves and other people, and it deepens shame, and it deepens regret, and it deepens failure, and it deepens the self-criticism, all of those things that go along with it. So it's that relentless loop, and it really prevents us from genuine healing, because we end up bypassing our feelings instead of feeling them and releasing them. Bypassing is one of the biggest crux, I think, when we look at the positive thinking, because positive thinking, just think positive thoughts, and you'll get positive results in your life. That in and of itself has been misconstrued, because there's more to that. The thinking is, it can serve us. Like, I just want to slow this down in some way. Let's look at it from we could say, the negative connotation of it. Because when we get into thinking about our feelings, as I said, judgment, shame, rationalization, we're feeling maybe even guilty. We start to fear that we've done something bad or wrong, or we've hurt someone, whatever it is. Our mind goes into chaos. And so that creates this inability to really feel and deal with what's coming up for us. And so again, when we're in that, we're just like, no, I'm just going to think positive. Everything's okay. Everything's well. Everything's good. Now, positive thinking can serve, and it can pull us out, but it pulls us out of that state only in a temporary kind of place. It's only temporary relief. It's not sustainable, healed relief. And so positive thinking isn't enough. The difference is when we move into giving ourselves permission to really dive in deep, to unmask what was really going on, where we're really holding ourselves with compassion and presence and understanding. That when we allow ourselves to move through the emotional well that we're experiencing, and then we think positive, there's a whole different current and energy that actually moves to support our well-being. When we look at this, I mean, again, it's we can't think ourselves into feeling better. We can't think ourselves into feeling better when our thoughts are of self-deprecation, when our thoughts are fueled by shame and rejection and regret and all of those things. We can't Positive thinking isn't enough. But when we are in the sense of moving into the understanding of, no lo I mean, that's bypassing it. Bypassing, I feel crappy, I have all this going on inside of me, and I'm gonna think positive, is just bypassing what's really going on and what needs to be tended to, what needs to be addressed, or even understood at a much deeper level inside of us. Whereas when we give that presence, as I said, and then we think positive, that creates positive energy and momentum for us that will support our well being. Now, we can't, when we talk about emotion, we can't overlook our ego. I mean, this is here again, whether we look at it from a psychological or spiritual context, when we understand the ego, it's the false self. It's this image that we've constructed about ourselves, our personal experiences, our beliefs, the societal influences, and our ego builds this mental armor. And this mental armor, again, of what we develop earlier on in our life as we navigate the complexity of our world. So there is a cohesive identity where, again, we cling to who we are, what we've known, because it gives us that false sense of security. Now, the ego is important because it functions, it provides structure for us, but it also creates separateness. And so that can also be a real significant barrier to us when we are on our healing journey as well, because the ego is what is creating, its role is in avoidance. So it shields us out of love. It has strategies that will shield us from further pain, further rejection, further abandonment, whatever the situation is. And so it causes us to put up walls around our feelings, especially for those feelings that are uncomfortable or feelings that we've been led to believe are unacceptable. Like I even remember in school, I remember having teachers that would um, I had some really lovely teachers, but I also had teachers who, you know, when I would get upset or I would be emotional in any way, I was too sensitive. Bonnie, you're being too sensitive over this. It was a fault of mine. So sensitivity was judged or defined as a fault. And so that was another thing where my ego then, because it was judged as being a fault or we could say a personality flaw of mine, I built up a wall around those feelings. And so it didn't matter the cost of it. There was a protective art. My ego created this protective mechanism. But in doing so, whether for me or for you, it suppresses our capacity again for growth, for self-awareness, for the deep connection, because it only reinforces defensiveness. This is again where I talk about, that those messages: be strong, don't cry, you're too sensitive, that shapes our identity instead of, it being a sense of really understanding who we are and allowing ourselves to show vulnerability and to express the emotions, whether that be expressions of joy, expressions of pain and suffering. You see, the ego, this is at least for me, I suppressed my pain as much as I suppressed my joy. I never allowed myself to feel. And I'm wondering, can you relate to that? Can you relate? I shouldn't feel this way. I need to hide myself. And especially if we're happy and joy filled when other people around us are miserable, we kind of pull it back. We have a tendency to hide it, to contain it, one out of respect. And we can understand that to some degree, but also, and when I think about, my life and my childhood and, my adolescence, that joy was because I couldn't express it because other people were in pain, and their pain was somehow more important than my joy. So here again, it was a core strategy for me. It was shield me not just from what was good and wonderful, but also the pain of the situation too. So again, our sensitivity, and I know there's so many people that are tuning into the show that you are sensitives. You are sensitive emotionally. You are sensitive energetically, and yet have been judged or criticized or condemned in some way because you're too sensitive. Don't cry, be strong, suck it up. And all of those external messages become internalized belief systems. When we hear it over and over and over again, it creates a belief system. It begins to shape our own identity, an identity based on expectation, based on conformity, based on what's acceptable and what's comfortable for other people. And that's huge. What's comfortable for others, right? So again, it's a part of our human condition. This isn't like a they're wrong and we're right, or whatever. No, it's a part of our conditioning. It feeds us. It's a fundamental aspect. It's a part of the illusion of our separateness. And so our ego perceives feelings as threats. threats to our identity rather than natural expressions of our humanity. And so there's this dichotomy that goes on where certain emotions are acceptable and can be displayed while others can't be. Right? So again, disconnection. So, our shame, this internal conflict, keep it in. Our sadness, our sorrow, keep it in. Our anger, our frustrations, keep it in. All of those things that be happy, show you, put a smile on your face, even when, you are feeling completely out of sorts. And so we create a facade. We wear a mask of strength, a mask of control, and ultimately we cut ourselves off from that, our own authenticity, and from the authentic, even the genuine emotional experiences that actually help us to heal. They actually help us to heal. So even though they're painful and hard, they're a part of the healing journey. But because of our human condition, we avoid it at all costs. Right? So again, when we recognize, okay, one, the ego has an incredible role here in our healing. It truly does. And so when we can remove ourselves, instead of, the judgment of it. So again, this is where we begin to question the belief systems, where we can look at, okay, maybe vulnerability doesn't equate to weakness. What if vulnerability is true strength? What if vulnerability is courage? What if vulnerability will be the key to my healing, right? So we have to look at redefining what strength looks like, about courage. But in order to do that, we need to sit in the discomfort. We need to admit our uncertainty. We need to reveal our real feelings, even when it feels risky. And but yet this is it. It's what builds connection. Builds trust. It builds intimacy. And again, it's when we look at having healthy relationships with people, it's what allows us to sustain those deep relationships as well. So letting go of the ego, I think, isn't about, when we say let it go of the ego, isn't letting go of this human part of us, because our ego is what makes us human. We require our ego in order to move forward in our life, to make decisions, to take action. It's a part of it. But what we need to let go of are all of the masks that we've put on to protect ourselves. And instead, as we take them off, we begin to reveal our true self. We begin to allow for more resilience to be a part of it, that imperfect, beautiful, fully human being that we are, and making way for both our joy and our suffering, not within judgment, but an understanding that feeling is such an important part of being human. I mean, we can even look and consider the things that are happening out in the world, right? Without getting into finger pointing or getting into different, judgments of what happens in the external world around us. But where we look at this societal conditioning, so many people are cut off from feeling compassion for others, feeling empathy for others, feeling patient for others, feeling understanding, feeling loving towards other people. And that's because the ego has built such a strong mask based on that societal conditioning, that false image, to the protect vulnerability, to protect because of wounding, because of the belief systems that have been established within one's own experience or understanding of themselves, of what's right and acceptable. So there's a real push towards condemning, criticizing those who are emotional, those that are kind, those are the individuals who are compassionate. Again, where it's being judged and it's not tolerated. It's not tolerated to be human. And here's where I'm saying we need to create space for feeling our own feelings, not thinking about our feelings and thinking ourselves out of our feelings and thinking that it's wrong to feel the things that we feel, not trying to create an understanding of why do I feel this way? What happened? No, we don't want to, it doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What's more important is we're creating space to feel how we need to feel sad, to feel love, to feel joy, to feel our losses, to feel our pain, making space for that because it allows for, again, where, for us just to be this well-rounded human, this whole self. When we think of whole self isn't about denial of our shadows or denial about what we could judge or say or define as negative feelings, but it's the full acceptance of all of it. It's beyond those other narratives that say I shouldn't feel this way, or I need to be okay here, or vulnerability is the weakness. This again, we're questioning those beliefs because those beliefs, are they really truly serving your well-being? Are they helping you to grow, or are they helping you to feel stuck? Whether feel stuck in fear, feeling stuck in shame, feeling stuck in your grief, feeling stuck in whatever it is, your anxiety even. So here, this is, where we really want to look at understanding ourselves, but more importantly, having the courage to feel deeply, to allow ourselves to get into what's uncomfortable inside of us. And instead of judging it, it's just knowing we're safe and knowing that this feeling that's coming up is only temporary, and that this feeling, if we can let it be a trusted friend, instead of something bad or something that we need to push away from. So here again, this is the truth, is that strength and vulnerability go hand in hand. Our inner strength is reliant on our capacity of vulnerability. And there's such a misconception of that vulnerability equals weakness. When instead, when we open ourselves up, we allow ourselves to be, we could say, the greatest warriors in our life, where we no longer need to hide our pain, but we can feel it, we can accept it, we can express it. It's so courageous to be able to do that. And when we do it, it's the very thing that dismantles the fear. It's that fear of exposure. And instead, we allow for love, we allow for compassion, and we allow for true connection. And true connection, compassion, and love, not just from other people or with other people, but with ourself. We allow for self love, we allow for self compassion, and we allow for true connection with who we are. So recognizing, I mean, we have to recognize the ego safeguards us. It's well intentioned, but it's also a part of the illusion that we need to protect ourselves from pain. And also, in essence, we end up really protecting ourselves from experiencing joy as well. So real strength comes from that courage to break through the false identity, to break through that barrier and allow for that full imperfect scope of our humanness to be a part of the equation in our lives, and not from, as I said, from thinking about our emotions and trying to make sense of them, trying to even, think ourselves into a more positive thought, but instead embracing vulnerability, allowing for that emotional expression, not just in terms of our own personal growth, but I want to say it's like this revolution that where we act against those challenges of what's been normal in society, and a part of what is shifting the collective consciousness here. When we dare to show our true feelings, we can begin to become a powerful example for other people. And again, which can inspire a culture of openness, of more compassion, of greater patience, of more understanding. And I think this is, again, when we look at the world, it's what's missing. It's what's missing. So again, the ego, this isn't about the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of abandonment. All of that is keeping us safe. It's keeping us small. It's keeping us hidden. Where when we practice expression of our emotion, and it's not like we're going out into the world and letting everybody know how we feel in the world, don't get me wrong. This is about to ourselves being honest and forthright and aware of what we're feeling, the impact of the experiences that we've had. How have they made us feel? What's going on inside of us that is causing us to believe that if we hang on, if we suppress it, if we suck it up, that that's going to keep us safe. Where when we all crave to be authentic. We all crave to reclaiming what is these lost parts of ourselves, or reclaiming power over our past. And how do we do it? Well, we do it from no longer overthinking, judging, criticizing, condemning, holding back our emotions. But instead, we practice vulnerability consistently. We practice trusting ourselves. We practice expression of how we feel and allowing ourselves to be present, acknowledge the pain, and acknowledging pain and joy. I'm really curious here again. It's like if we were sitting down and having coffee right now, I would love to know, so do you let yourself express your joy, or do you hold back? Do you go out in the world when you're having a really happy day and you're feeling a lot of energy and excitement? Do you hold back, or do you share that joy? Really curious, because when we look at whether it's a positive emotion or a negative emotion, if we suppress our darker emotions, if we suppress our pain, chances are we're suppressing our joy too. It just happens. It's part of our conditioning. Okay. So here again, the path really, towards that healing, like I said, that courage to step into our full humanity, acknowledging the pain and the joy at the same time, and recognizing that every single emotion is a part of who we are. So when we give space to feel, we are in a place of where, okay, now we have self-compassion. Now we are creating I would say a deeper connection to who we are, this normal part of being human, not as I said, as emotions of something wrong or bad, but something that says, hey, you and I are the same. You and I feel. You and I both have things that go on inside of us that we've left unattended to. It creates a space, or we could say a playground for us to recognize and see our commonalities instead of the things that make us different. So the other part of this, I want to look at this even deeper, because when we look at in consideration of trauma, when we've had extreme wounding, or maybe it's been one experience we've had, or we have multiple experiences, maybe a compounded aspect of trauma. Now, that trauma could be something personal that we've experienced. It could be inherited. And of course, you're tuning into my show, so you know and understand what I mean by inherited, whether that comes from our parents, our ancestors, whether it's about within karmic information that we're still holding, whether it's past life, what have we brought forward with us into this lifetime. All of that becomes stored. It's stored in our body. It's stored in our subconscious mind, and it manifests through physical tension, aggression, illness, even. It's all unprocessed emotion. I know it was Louise Hay's birthday yesterday, or not yesterday, I think, don't even know what day it is, but the beginning of October, I think October 8th or something like that was Louise Hay's birthday. And if you're familiar with Louise Hay, one of the things that she was an advocate for, her teachings were helping to understand that every illness, every disease, everything that was going on inside of our human body was a result of an emotion that had been suppressed or unattended, something that had been unprocessed. And she would say, that the key to healing our body, that there's an emotional root cause to everything. And the key to healing was to unlock the emotion, which means that our healing involves being able to not just acknowledge the experiences we've had, not just about understanding, finding understanding or seeking about why did that bad thing happen, and you know, looking at how could someone do that to me, or how could someone do those things to other people. The mind judges, it intellectualizes experiences, emotions, everything. But when we go into this, the true understanding of emotion, the principles of emotion, one of the greatest principles of emotion is that it is energy in motion. There is a correlating energy that is a part of what is looking to move through us. Emotions are not meant to be stored indefinitely. They are meant to move through us. Energy is a dynamic force of something that's always looking to be in motion, not stored. But we as human beings, we store it, we suppress it, we push it down, we avoid it at all costs. And we think and think and think about how we feel. And we think and think and think about, why did this happen? Why did they do this? Why are they not being kind to me? Why? So we let go of the why and we say, because. And because it doesn't give you an answer, but it allows for acceptance. It is what it is. It just is. It happened. When we can stop our mind from seeking the reason or the rationale for these things that happened, and move into a space of just saying, it happened and I feel this. It happened and it impacted me. It happened and I'm going to allow it to rise up. I'm going to allow it to be a part of a processing. I'm going to allow the emotions are energy in motion, and I'm going to allow that energy to move through me instead. So here's something that's really cool, is that when we think of emotion and these bad things that happened and the impact that our traumas have had on us and the wounding that we're carrying, many of us have lived for decades hanging on to that emotional residue. We've been hanging on to the emotional content of the experiences we've had. That's why when we get triggered, why it creates such an upset. It's an indication that there's something stored inside of us that has been left unprocessed. Or when we sometimes can overreact in what can seem like a seamless, mild situation, but our emotional reaction is so extreme where we become very overt and very maybe upset and angered and strike out in some way, a very expressive experience on an emotional context where we look at it. Why does that happen? Here's a great why question. Why? Because something is unprocessed inside of us, and we've carried the pain, we've suppressed it, we've stuffed it into our organs, we've stuffed it into our heart, into our liver, into our kidneys, we've put it into our joints, into our knees and hips and back and elbows, and it's everywhere inside of our body. We push it down, push it down, push it down, and then we have tension and we have dis-ease and we have aches and pains and all of the stuff that happens within our human body, and decades upon decades, and it continues to manifest, it continues to fester, it sits there, it's unprocessed, and it is this rumination that goes on. This is ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, because why? We've been conditioned that feeling is weakness. We've been conditioned that it's not safe to feel. We've been judged. We've been criticized, even by our own self, of the wrongness of feeling the things that we feel. So we hang on to it. Decades, 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 decades. But when we give ourselves a chance to really feel into something, into the experience, into the memory, to feel the emotion, the tears, the rawness, and to be and allow for the energy to move through us. Did you know that it only takes approximately 90 seconds to release that? 90 seconds to release a suppressed emotion once we allow ourselves and we allow it to move through us. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? Decades of hanging on to something unprocessed that it creates anger and frustration, the not enoughness and feeling unworthy and all those belief systems that have been conjured up from that experience, that residue that sits there decades. And yet it's only 90 seconds to release it. 90 seconds. So when we look at it, this is 90 seconds physically, energetically, emotionally, mentally even. 90 seconds when we give ourselves some space and permission to feel it fully. This is so important because when we understand this and we give opportunity to it, it dismantles the unconscious beliefs that sit there, that our emotional pain even must be endured, that we need to work through all of these bad things that happen to us. And sometimes sitting in a therapist's office for years, for years, intellectualizing our feelings, talking about the things that have happened, thinking about what's happened, but never given the space or opportunity to feel through it, because 90 seconds. And here again, that is a time frame that stems from neuroscience, the energy psychology research that's out there. So this isn't something I'm just making up, but it indicates again, emotions are essentially energy in motion. And when an emotion is triggered, it activates our nervous system. It produces sensations and thoughts and physical responses. But yet, when we stay present with it, when we breathe through it, when we allow for it, when we're just being present without resistance, that the energy begins to move and dissipate and allows for, yes, the waves are so huge and it can be really, really hard in those moments. But here, instead of there having been this internal pressure, this physical tension, those mental loops, that when we honor the wave and honor the emotion and we breathe and we move through it, it passes. It's temporary, right? It's temporary. So why do we hang on? Well, why? It's a lot of it. That over analysis, that self-criticism, that mistake that we need to ruminate in it. We need to figure it out. We need to figure out. We need to process. But all of it keeps it static, trapped. It keeps it stuck inside of us. And so, yeah, why does it happen? Anxiety, depression, burnout, physical aches and pains, all of it unresolved emotion. All of it compounds over years, over years, over years. And again, leads us to be disconnected from ourselves. And of course, even disconnected from others, right? So it's a myth. It is a myth that a misconception, I'm going to say more of a myth that it's going to take a really long time, that our healing journey is going to take a long time, that all of this emotions that we have inside of us, that it's going to be this arduous process. When in fact, maybe initially it can be really hard to go there and our ego's trying to protect us and hold us back. And, but when we allow, it's actually very quick. We've just been conditioned to believe that we need to analyze it. We need to justify it. We need to understand it. We need it in order. Here's a belief system that we need this pain in order to feel safe, in order to ensure that it never happens again. And we hang on to it because it's something that we've identified with of serving us, and yet it doesn't serve us at all. That to truly feel safe and to move beyond those things that happened, we need to give ourselves that space to move through that emotion. And genuine emotional release really is a minute and a half. A minute and a half. We can allow ourselves to be fully present, to lean into the discomfort, to just give us the opportunity to recognize how resilient we really are to withstand whatever pain is coming up for ourselves. So, 90 seconds. So, here's how this works, my friends. And I want to leave you with this today. 90 seconds, where one, when you start to feel an emotion rising up inside of you, whatever you're doing, whatever you're doing, pause and breathe. Find your breath. You might even find it helpful. I always find it helpful to close my eyes, to close my eyes, place my hands on my heart, and take a slow, deep breath. You want to center yourself. The next thing you want to do is you want to create an identity of the emotion. You want to identify it. Now, this is more than recognizing just that it's anger or shame or fear and sadness. We want to be able to name it. We want to be able to name it. But before we name it, look to identify it. Give it an identity like a character. So as an example, maybe you have anxiety and you can feel anxiety in your belly, okay? Recognize it. Picture it as a character. Maybe you're going to see it as an example. It's a little gnome and its head is on fire, or it's a dark cloud or a jagged stone. You give it an identity, give it a character. You could give it a color, you can give it a texture. Just you want to identify the emotion, and it's more than just identifying it by naming it. But first you was like, oh, I'm feeling anxiety. Oh, what does anxiety look like? Let your imagination go here. Ooh, it's a little gnome in my belly and its head is on fire. Okay, whatever that is, stay present with it. Breathe into the sensation of it. Let yourself let yourself just be really present with what it is. You might even see that through your own your own way, is that as you see that fire of anxiety or that little gnome's head on fire, that here you pour some water on it. And when you pour water on it and you've recognized, it's like, okay, I've named it. I've created an identity. And now you're allowing yourself to take some action here. And in taking the action, you're going to notice some other sensations, some other thoughts. You might just imagine this emotional energy as a wave or a cloud, whatever. Just move it through your body, breathe it through your body, out your fingers and toes. See it taking place and see it dissolving, and whatever that looks like to you. And here again, those connection tools, your hand on your heart, your hand on your belly, those can really help to facilitate that feeling process. And just breathe it, stay with it, acknowledge it, identify it, and let it move through you. And simply, here as you let it pass, this becomes this affirmative, and it's done. I even find it a great practice to thank the emotion for being there, to thank my ego for all the ways in which it has protected me and allowed me to hang on to this emotion. And then I tell my body and I tell my ego, it's okay to let it go. I have the skills, I have the strength, I have the resilience, I have the lessons, and I no longer need to hold this emotion or store it in my body anymore. And I'm there. I'm dedicate, and this is here. Dedicate 90 seconds anytime an uncomfortable emotion comes up for you. Identify it, name it, take some action to see the fire going out, to move the wave through you, to dissolve. Maybe you're even going to see angels coming in and painting your inner world with light. You might even imagine that they've got a vacuum cleaner where they're sucking up all the negative emotion that's inside of you. It doesn't matter. how your mind conceptualizes this dissolving inside of you. You just want to breathe here. Let yourself cry. Let yourself be present. Let yourself feel the waves and let it move through you, those thoughts, those sensations, whatever's going on. You might even want to tap your body or just roll your shoulders, but stay there, and imagine for yourself that it's dissipating. Imagine that it's dissipating. Connect, hold yourself, breathe deeply, let it pass, and thank it for being there. Give your body, yourself, permission to let it go. 90 seconds, my friends, that's all it takes for you to go from feeling, from overwhelm, irregardless of what emotion is coming up, anger, shame, fear, sadness, regret, resentment, whatever it is. And you're going to see that you have now expressed it. You've expressed it instead of suppressing it. You've given yourself the opportunity to feel it in order to heal it instead of allowing the analytical mind and all its logic and all its rationale to keep it held and locked in your system. Okay? So give that a try. I would love for you to let me know if you work this process, you give yourself a chance to do this. Let me know. Email me, get in touch, and you can find, of course, more information on my website at bonnieworth.ca. You can get in touch with me. Let me know how this resonated with you, how you felt before, how you felt after. And you're going to, because I know from my personal experience, it has been 90 seconds has been a lifesaver for me in many of my overwhelmed emotional states. And so I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if there was something that I shared in this episode that you found helpful and you maybe feel that someone close to you could really benefit, I encourage you, of course, to share this episode with them. And please don't forget to subscribe through all of the channels that are available for the show. It means so much to have you as a part of the listening audience week after week. All right, sweet friends. Well, thank you so much for being here and have a wonderful week ahead. I am back next week, same time, same place. And remember, no matter what is going on in your life, there is always a way through.